Before start this heartwarming story, please tell us in the comment box, where are you watching from? The first time Clara Jordan walked through the glass doors of Leotech Industries, she felt like a stranger stepping into another universe. Tall silver walls, shining marble floors, people in black suits clicking past like they owned the stars. The air smelled of wealth, coffee, and ambition. But Clara, standing in her pale blue dress with her mother's old purse in hand, smelled of hope. She was 21, white, raised in the quiet cornfields of Iowa, where people left their doors unlocked and dreams were stitched with kindness. She had grown up in a small home with her mother's cinnamon cookies and her father's hard work. Her clothes weren't new, her heart had never been touched, and her dreams had never involved power. She had only wanted a chance to work hard, be helpful, and build a better life. But New York wasn't Iowa, and Joseph Leo was not a man of kindness. He was 32nd, tall, perfectly sculpted, hair as dark as a raven's wing, suits sharper than winter wind, and a voice that could silence a room with a single word. He owned Leotech, one of the world's most powerful tech empires. But more than that, he owned people's fears. His presence made interns drop their coffee. His silence was louder than shouting. They called him the icy king behind his back because he never smiled, never apologized, and never made mistakes. He had no family photos in his office, no pets, no soft edges. Joseph Leo was raised in a mansion built on cold traditions. His family had been billionaires for generations. They believed in private clubs, old wine, and keeping bloodlines pure. Anyone outside their world was inferior. They were polite in public, cruel in private, and proud of their prejudice. And that's the world that built him. So when Clara became his junior assistant, she became just another nobody in the hallway. Just another girl he wouldn't remember the name of. But she remembered everything about him. The way he never looked up from his screen when people talked. The way his eyes missed emotions like they were beneath him. The way he seemed untouchable. Clara didn't hate him. In fact, she saw something sad in him. She watched him from behind files and printer paper. She noticed how his shoulders slumped when no one was watching. How he stared out the window after a long meeting as if searching for something he'd lost. Sometimes she caught him pausing, just for a second, when he passed her desk. But he never said her name, never thanked her, never smiled. Still, she noticed, and slowly something grew in her heart. She didn't understand it. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was something deeper than a crush, a curiosity, a longing, a whisper of something that scared her and thrilled her all at once. She never wore makeup to impress him. She never flirted. She just did her work, spoke softly, and treated him like a human. Something most people forgot to do. And maybe, just maybe, he noticed. But Joseph didn't trust softness. He didn't trust kindness. He thought people were kind only when they wanted something. That was how his world worked. So when Clara looked at him with those innocent blue eyes, it shook him. She didn't belong in his world, and yet she lingered in his mind longer than anyone ever had. One evening, as he stood in his penthouse staring at the skyline, he remembered the way Clara had smiled when handing him a forgotten folder. Small, nervous, genuine. He hated how it made him feel, like his walls were cracking. So he built them higher. He came in colder the next day, gave her short replies, pretended he hadn't noticed her soft voice in meetings. He convinced himself she was just another assistant who would leave in a year. But the truth was, Clara was already in his heart. She just didn't know it yet, and neither did he. Not fully. Not until that one night when everything would change. Christmas Eve in New York was a beautiful lie. Outside, the streets sparkled with lights. Snowflakes danced gently from the sky like pieces of heaven. Families laughed, lovers held hands, and the world felt like a snow globe of magic. But inside the tall glass tower of Leotech Industries, it was cold, silent, lonely. The holiday party had ended early. Most of the employees had rushed home to warmth and family. The music had faded. The laughter had stopped. But Clara stayed. She stayed to help clean up the leftovers, collect the forgotten coats, and throw away the half-drunk champagne. She didn't have anyone waiting at home. Her little apartment was quiet, and her parents were too far away in Iowa. She didn't want to be alone. And that's when she heard footsteps echo through the empty office. Joseph Leo appeared, without warning. He wasn't in his usual flawless suit. His tie hung loose around his neck. His shirt was half untucked. And for the first time ever, he looked human. His face was pale, his lips slightly parted, and in his hand was a nearly empty bottle of scotch. Clara froze, not sure what to say. He didn't see her at first. He staggered slightly and collapsed onto the office couch near the windows. The lights of the city flickered behind him like silent witnesses. "I hate holidays," he muttered, resting his head back. Clara stepped forward slowly, heart pounding. "Why?" she asked softly. Joseph turned his head, and for the first time he really looked at her, not like an employee, not like a stranger, but like a person. A holiday is supposed to mean love, family, people who care. His voice cracked. "All I ever get is cold wine, fake smiles, and people pretending they love me because I sign their checks." He looked away, ashamed to admit the truth. Clara sat beside him, not too close, not too far, just beside. Silence wrapped around them like a blanket. Snow kept falling beyond the windows. "You're different, Clara," he whispered, eyes still fixed on the darkness outside. She blinked. "Me?" He nodded, slowly. "You don't want anything from me. You're not trying to impress me. You just are." Clara's chest tightened. She wanted to speak, to say that she noticed him too, that she saw the loneliness beneath his cold armor, that she thought about him more than she should. But before she could find the words, he kissed her. It wasn't planned. It wasn't smooth. It was raw, vulnerable, painful. His lips were warm and trembling. His hands gently touched her face, as if afraid she'd vanish. She didn't pull away. She couldn't. Her heart raced. Her breath caught. She kissed him back. Not because he was rich or powerful or beautiful, but because in that moment, he was just a man, broken, alone, and real. Their kisses grew deeper, more desperate. His hands shook as he touched her, as if terrified he'd break something so pure. She had never been touched like that before, never been kissed like she mattered. She had saved her virginity, not because of rules or fear, but because she was waiting for a moment like this, a moment that felt like truth. He whispered her name like a prayer, and in the soft glow of office lights, with snow swirling behind the windows, in the city far below, she gave herself to him completely, for the first time. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Afterward, they lay wrapped in each other's arms. Her head rested on his chest. His fingers gently traced circles on her back. He didn't speak, but he held her like he never wanted to let go. In his arms, Clara felt something she'd never known before. She felt safe. She felt seen. She felt chosen. Her heart whispered, maybe he sees the real me. Maybe this was the beginning of something rare. Maybe this night would change everything. And as she drifted off to sleep beside him, warm and loved, she whispered 3 silent words into his chest. "Please remember this." But she didn't know that come morning, everything would be different. Clara's eyes fluttered open to the soft glow of sunlight streaming through the large windows of Joseph's penthouse. The world outside was blanketed in snow, as if everything had been hushed, waiting for her to wake. For a moment she forgot where she was. She thought she was back in her tiny apartment in Iowa, waking up to the smell of her mother's cinnamon rolls. But then, the memories of the night before flooded back. The warmth of his embrace, his soft whispers, the way he kissed her like he wanted to hold her forever, and the way she felt, alive in a way she never had before. She turned her head and saw him. Joseph, his dark, tousled hair, his strong jawline, his body still wrapped in the remnants of sleep. Her heart fluttered. She smiled softly, expecting him to pull her closer, to offer some word of tenderness, some acknowledgement of the night they shared. But instead, he was standing by the window, his back to her. She could see his broad shoulders stiffen as he slipped on his shirt. The muscles in his back, usually so powerful and confident, looked tense and guarded. Clara's heart skipped a beat. Something was wrong. "Joseph?" Her voice was soft, uncertain. He didn't respond at first. He simply buttoned his shirt with mechanical precision. Then, after a long moment of silence, he turned to face her. His blue eyes were distant, cold, as if the warmth of the night before had vanished like smoke. "I was drunk last night," he said, his voice flat, emotionless. The words hit Clara like a slap. "What?" she whispered, her throat tight. "I was drunk," he repeated, his gaze never meeting hers. "And it shouldn't have happened." Clara's breath caught in her chest. She couldn't breathe. She sat up in bed, the silk sheets slipping from her body. But she didn't care. She needed answers. She needed to know if this was real, if what they shared meant anything. "Joseph, you don't remember?" she asked, her voice trembling. He shook his head slowly, his expression unreadable. "I remember enough, but I don't do relationships with employees. I never mix business with pleasure." Her heart shattered into a million pieces at those words. Not even a second of kindness. Not a single sign that the connection between them meant anything. She felt the coldness in his words seep into her bones, leaving her frozen. She felt her hands tremble as she held the sheets around her. How could this happen? How could he turn everything they shared into nothing? Her voice cracked as she whispered, "So, that's it? It meant nothing?" His eyes finally met hers, but there was no warmth in them, no affection, no apology. "No," he said coldly, a smirk tugging at the corners of his lips. "Let's just pretend this didn't happen. It's better that way. For you." Clara's breath caught in her throat as the weight of his words sank in. Better for her? He didn't want her. Not because she wasn't beautiful, not because she wasn't worthy, but because she wasn't like the women he was used to. The women who were rich, polished, and powerful. She wasn't his level. She wasn't anything to him. Her chest felt as though it were being crushed under the weight of his indifference. She had given herself to him, body, heart, soul, and this was how he repaid her? By brushing her aside as if she were a passing whim, an inconvenience that he couldn't be bothered to care about. Clara could barely keep her tears at bay. She quickly wiped them away, but they kept coming. How could he do this to her? She wanted to scream, to shout at him for breaking her, for taking something so pure and turning it into a twisted joke. But her voice failed her. Instead, she stood up from the bed, her legs unsteady, and walked toward him, her heart shattering with each step. "I thought," her voice faltered, "I thought it meant something." Joseph didn't move. His eyes stayed cold, distant. He had already turned away. He had already discarded her in his mind. And that was when she realized she meant nothing to him. She had been a passing moment, a mistake, a fleeting desire that he now regretted. "I'm not your type, Clara," he said, his voice flat. "You're just an employee. I don't do relationships with people beneath me." The words sliced through her like a knife. She had never felt so small, so worthless. She had tried to convince herself that Joseph saw her for who she really was, sweet, kind, innocent, but in his eyes, she was just another face in a crowd, someone to be used, someone to be forgotten. Clara didn't have the strength to stay. She didn't have the strength to argue, to beg him to see her. She just turned and fled. She ran through the penthouse, her footsteps echoing like the sound of her broken heart. She grabbed her things, her coat, and without looking back, she rushed out of the door into the cold, biting air. She had given him everything, everything she had, and in return, she had been cast aside, just like that. The next day, Clara sat at her small desk at Leotech Industries, her hands shaking as she typed out her resignation letter. The words came out like an endless stream of tears. She pressed send and sat back in her chair, feeling numb. The world outside the office felt like a blur. She had believed in him, believed in them. But Joseph Leo had only seen her as a tool, a disposable thing, not because of who she was, but because she was ordinary, not rich enough, not his level. And now all she had left was a broken heart, a shattered dream, and the cruel reality of what he thought of her. Weeks passed. The world outside felt like a distant dream for Clara. After the cold, heart-shattering morning she had left Joseph's penthouse, she couldn't bear to stay in New York any longer. The city, with its bright lights and endless noise, had become a reminder of all she had lost. The dreams she once had, the connections she thought she had with Joseph, now felt like distant echoes of a life she would never return to. She returned to Iowa, where life moved slower, where the simple hum of a small town was all she could handle. Her father had fallen ill, and Clara needed to be there. He needed her, and she found comfort in the familiar scent of her mother's old kitchen and the quiet hum of the bakery where she worked. The work was hard but soothing. Kneading dough, shaping pastries, and serving the same regular customers every morning gave her a sense of peace she had longed for. But the peace was only on the outside. Inside, her heart still ached. It still broke every time she thought of Joseph, every time she recalled the cold look in his eyes when he told her to forget him. She would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering where it had gone wrong. What had she missed? Why did she believe he could ever see her for who she truly was? She wasn't like the women he dated, rich, polished, and part of his world. She had tried to convince herself that it didn't matter, that he was just another man who didn't understand what true love was. But in the dark of night, she couldn't deny the truth. She still loved him. And that love came with so much pain, pain she couldn't escape, not even in the quiet corners of her childhood home. Meanwhile, Joseph Leo was living a life he didn't want. His days were filled with meetings, extravagant parties, and dates with women who looked like they belonged in glossy magazines. He drowned his regrets in alcohol, surrounded himself with temporary distractions. But no matter what he did, Clara's face lingered in his mind. Every night, when the world went quiet and his mind had nothing left to run from, he saw her face. He saw the way she had looked at him that night, those blue eyes full of trust, full of love, the way she had given herself to him completely, without hesitation, without expecting anything in return. And then he remembered his words, his cruel words. "I don't do relationships with employees. Let's just pretend this didn't happen." The words had been cold, cold like ice, and they haunted him. No matter how hard he tried to erase her from his mind, he couldn't. She had been the only person who had ever made him feel real, the only person who saw through the walls he'd built up around his heart. Joseph tried to move on. He went to parties, dated models, pretended like everything was fine. But deep down, he knew the truth. He wasn't fine, and every time he closed his eyes, he saw Clara's tear-streaked face, her eyes filled with heartbreak, filled with the hurt he had caused her. He had shattered something inside her that night. He had taken away the one thing she had given him, her trust, her love. One afternoon, his assistant handed him Clara's resignation letter again. It had been weeks since she'd left Leotech, weeks since he'd last seen her. The letter was still there, sitting on his desk, a reminder of what he had lost, what he had thrown away. "She was the only real person here," his assistant said, her voice quiet but direct. "And you broke her." Joseph's heart tightened. The words stung more than he expected. Real person. Clara had been real. She had been the only one who had ever treated him like a human being and not a paycheck. The only one who hadn't tried to use him or be someone she wasn't around him. And yet, he had destroyed her. The memories came rushing back. Clara's soft smile, the way she had looked at him with those innocent eyes as if she believed in something more than just his wealth and status, the way she trusted him, no games, no walls. He had broken her, and now she was gone. He stood there staring at her resignation letter, feeling an overwhelming sense of regret. His stomach churned. He had ruined the one chance he had ever had at something real. Something that wasn't about money, power, or status. Something that didn't need to be perfect. Just authentic. Joseph sat down at his desk, his fingers gripping the edge of the table. He felt empty. The glass walls of his office felt like a prison now. He had spent his entire life building walls to protect himself, to keep everyone at a distance. But with Clara, the walls had fallen down, only for him to tear her down instead. In the quiet of his office, the world outside blurred into nothingness, and Joseph Leo realized, for the first time in his life, that he was the one who needed saving. It was a cold, snowy afternoon in Iowa. Clara had just finished her shift at the bakery, her hands still dusted with flour, her heart a little lighter from the comfort of the work. She had grown accustomed to the quiet rhythm of life here, away from the chaos of New York. But as she turned onto the familiar street that led to her house, something unusual caught her eye. A sleek black car was parked outside her driveway, its tinted windows reflecting the gray sky above. For a moment, Clara stood still, a chill creeping up her spine, not from the cold, but from a feeling she hadn't had in weeks, a feeling she couldn't shake. It was him, Joseph. Her breath hitched in her chest as she quickened her pace, not knowing if she was ready to face him, not sure if she even wanted to. She had buried her heart so deep, convinced that he had forgotten about her, that he had moved on to other women, other distractions. But here he was, in her world. As she approached the car, the door opened, and out stepped Joseph, his tall frame looking just as confident as ever. His sharp features were still as striking, but there was a softness in his eyes, a weariness that hadn't been there before. He was holding something, a single white rose, its delicate petals contrasting with the icy world around them. "Clara," he said softly, his voice carrying a note of regret, a tone she had never heard from him before. Her heart skipped a beat. What was he doing here? She stopped a few steps away, unable to move closer, unsure of what to say. The air between them felt heavy, thick with unspoken words. "Why are you here?" Clara asked, her voice shaky, barely able to hold the weight of the question. Joseph paused, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity she had never seen. "I've been wrong about so many things," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I let my cold, rich world make me think that people like you were beneath me. But Clara, you're the only person who ever saw me, the real me." His words hit her like a wave, crashing against her heart. The man who had broken her, the man who had dismissed her without a second thought, was standing here, admitting he was wrong. The walls he had built around himself seemed to have crumbled, and in their place was a man who had finally realized what truly mattered. Clara's breath caught in her throat, her mind racing. Could he really mean this? Was this just another game? But before she could ask another question, Joseph stepped closer and handed her something, an envelope, a letter. Her hands trembled as she took it, the white rose still resting in his other hand. Joseph gave her one last, lingering look before turning toward the car. "I'm sorry, Clara," he whispered, the words soft and genuine. "I never should have hurt you. I'll be waiting." And with that, he walked back to the car, the engine starting with a low hum. Clara stood frozen on her doorstep, the letter burning in her hands, the rose a symbol of something she wasn't sure she could believe in again. She watched as the black car drove away, fading into the distance like a dream she had once had. For a long time, Clara stood there, holding the letter, unable to move. Her mind was a whirlwind of confusion, anger, and a deep, aching longing. She didn't want to let him in. She didn't want to risk the pain again. But the look in his eyes, the way he spoke to her, there was something raw and real there. And despite everything, despite the hurt he had caused, she felt a small flicker of hope deep inside her heart. Slowly, she stepped inside her house, closing the door behind her with a soft click. The world outside was quiet now, the snow falling in gentle silence. Clara sat down at the kitchen table, the envelope still in her trembling hands. She couldn't wait any longer. With a deep breath, Clara tore open the envelope, her eyes scanning the words written inside. As she read, her hands shook even more. "I told you I didn't do relationships, but that was a lie. The truth is, I didn't deserve you. I still don't, but I'm willing to spend my life trying to. I love you, Clara." The words were simple, but they hit her with the force of a storm. She read them over and over again, as if hoping they would make more sense with each pass. "I love you, Clara." Tears sprang to her eyes unbidden. She had never thought she would hear those words from Joseph Leo. The man who had turned her world upside down was now offering her something she thought she would never have: the truth. Her heart ached with both joy and sorrow. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that he truly understood the depth of what he had done. But could she forgive him? Could she trust him again after everything that had happened? Clara closed her eyes, resting her head in her hands, the letter clutched tightly in her grip. The emotions that swirled inside her were overwhelming, and yet there was a part of her that couldn't deny the connection they shared. A part of her that still longed for the man who had broken her, because deep down she knew that he had broken himself too. She took a deep breath and wiped away the tears that had fallen. For the first time in weeks, her heart felt lighter. The weight of the past few months, the loneliness, the pain, had lifted just slightly. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing. She couldn't ignore what was right in front of her anymore. Joseph Leo had come to her. He had apologized. And maybe, just maybe, he was telling the truth. The sound of Joseph's car faded into the distance, but Clara's heart was still racing. She stood in the snow, the cold biting at her skin, yet she couldn't bring herself to move. The letter was still clutched tightly in her hand, its words still echoing in her mind. I love you, Clara. Her heart felt torn, conflicted between the woman she was before and the woman she had become after that night. I love you, Clara. Her heart felt torn, conflicted between the woman she was before and the woman she had become after that night. Could she really forgive him? Could she trust him again? But as the last echoes of his car's engine disappeared, a sudden surge of determination rose inside her. She couldn't let him go. Not like this. Not after everything. She had loved him so deeply, and despite the pain, there was still something undeniable between them. Before she even realized what she was doing, Clara ran out the door. Her breath came in short, ragged gasps as she sprinted down the driveway, snow crunching under her boots. She had to catch him. She had to tell him what she was feeling before it was too late. Joseph hadn't gone far. He had stopped at the end of the street, the car idling, as if waiting for Clara to come to him. His heart was heavy with regret. He had no idea if she would even come back, let alone forgive him. But he had meant what he said. He couldn't go back to the life he had before. Not without her. As Clara came into view, Joseph turned. Her face was flushed with both cold and emotion, her eyes wide with unshed tears. And there, under the pale winter sky, he saw her walking toward him. Not as the shy, innocent girl from the office, but as a woman who had fought through pain and found strength. Tears welled in her eyes and her voice trembled when she spoke. I believed you didn't care, she whispered, the words so raw, so fragile. But if you're truly sorry, if you're ready to change. Joseph didn't need her to say more. He could see it in her eyes. She wasn't just offering him forgiveness. She was offering him a chance to become the man he was meant to be. To stand beside her, not as someone better or higher up, but as someone who was willing to fight for her, for them. He nodded, his throat tight with emotion. I'm not asking for a second chance. I'm begging for it. The weight of his words hit Clara like a tidal wave, but this time it wasn't a wave of hurt. It was a wave of hope. Slowly she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. She clung to him tightly, feeling the warmth of his embrace, the truth in his arms. The man who had broken her was now the man who was asking to be her partner, not just in love, but in life. I'm sorry, Joseph whispered again, his voice thick with emotion. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of you. Clara didn't respond with words. She didn't need to. The way she held him, the way their hearts beat in sync, said it all. She had forgiven him. Months passed. Clara and Joseph's love had grown stronger. They had both changed, and the world around them began to change as well. Clara was no longer just the innocent assistant she had once been. She was now the woman who had taught Joseph how to love and how to see beyond wealth and status. Joseph, in turn, had learned humility and compassion, things he had never truly understood before. Together, they built something greater than either of them could have imagined. A charity foundation dedicated to helping poor, working-class youth attend college. They created scholarships, mentorship programs, and opportunities for young people who didn't have the financial means to pursue their dreams. Joseph's vision for the future had completely shifted. No longer was he solely focused on expanding Leotech Industries. Instead, he stepped down as CEO, handing over the reins to a trusted colleague, and gave away millions to support the causes that mattered. He wanted to fix the world he had once ignored, the world of the people he had once dismissed. But the most profound change wasn't just in Joseph's career, it was in the way he viewed the world. He no longer saw wealth and class as measures of a person's worth. He saw people for who they truly were, for the value they brought into the world, regardless of their background. And Clara? She wasn't just his wife. She became his partner in life. They built the foundation together, side by side, working day and night to make a difference. And as they worked together, their bond deepened. Their love was no longer just about passion. It was about a shared purpose, a shared mission to change the world. One evening, as they sat in their living room after a long day, Joseph took Clara's hand in his, looking at her with a tenderness she hadn't seen in him before. "You changed me, Clara," he said quietly, his voice full of gratitude and wonder. "I never thought someone like you could make me see the world in such a different way. But you did, and I'm the luckiest man in the world." Clara smiled, her heart full. "We changed each other," she whispered back. "You taught me what it means to forgive. And together, we're showing the world that love is stronger than class, stronger than the things that divide us." They leaned in, their foreheads touching, their love deeper than it had ever been. Their lives had become a testament to the truth they had discovered. That love, when nurtured by trust and selflessness, could heal wounds, break down walls, and change the world. And in that moment, they both knew. This was only the beginning. They had a lifetime to build together, to fight for each other and for the causes they believed in. Their love wasn't just something that had survived, it had thrived. And in the process, they had both become better people. They were no longer trapped by the walls of society. They were free. Love has no class. It doesn't care about money, status, or power. It only asks for truth, courage, and change. In a world full of division, Clara and Joseph proved that the strongest love comes from choosing someone, not because of who they are on the outside, but because of the light they carry inside.